I'm Jake. I'm 15 and welcome to Orpheus Games. I love board games, but I also love books, and today I'm excited to share my top 5 favorite books of all time. This is something different than I normally do, which is mostly board game related, so if you like it or don't, just leave a comment and I'll understand if I should continue to do more stuff like this, like my top 5 favorite TV shows or movies, etc., in case you're interested in that. But without further ado, let's jump right into the honorable mentions so we can keep this a bit of a shorter video. So first up in honorable mentions, there's Harry Potter Book 5, The Order of the Phoenix. Super cool. This series was my childhood, as I'm sure for many other people, and while I disagree with some of the author's decisions, Book 5 is obviously the best. Don't tell me 3 or 4 or anything. No, it's obviously 5. Sirius Black's best in this, Harry's best in this, and it has Tonk's best book by far, except maybe Battle of Hogwarts in Book 7, and it's totally amazing. That's Harry Potter. One of the best romance books, sort of, also an interview. It's very unique. I have lots of different book tastes, you'll see, but this was such a unique book and such a realistic book. I thought it was super cool how it explored different people's lives, that I don't really want to spoil anything. I'm not going to spoil any of the books in this video, but this was also a really great book you should definitely check out if you sort of like romances or histories or movie stars, and who doesn't? That was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Then my favorite comic book, I fell over. My favorite comic book, and definitely the best graphic novel, is Avengers vs. X-Men, or the story of the Phoenix Force, which I think is super cool. Emma Frost is obviously the best X-Men, and it's really cool, all the different characters they had. I really like the X-Men and also the Avengers, and I really think this was a really cool comic with a really different story, and I don't really read a lot of comics, so this might not be good at all, but it seemed really cool, and I do really like it from the beginning through how it develops. I really like what happens with the different X-Men and the power of the Phoenix, but I'm not going to spoil it. That was Avengers vs. X-Men, obviously the best comic book. Then we have the actual top 5. So number 5, an amazing Greek novel, which is such a realistic exploration of the mythology, and not like a book by Homer or whatever, which I do really like, the Iliad and the Odyssey, great. But this is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is actually such a unique book. It's such a thorough exploration and development of a character from Greek mythology you don't really think about or care that much about, besides like, oh, she's a witch. But this is really cool in how it explores like being trapped on an island and all the different stories and the Odyssey, and it's all super cool how all the different themes that it explores and how such amazingly told the world is. Oh, and it has these cool frilly things on the pages, which are cool. But it's really well written and so many tales filled in, but still just one character, which is such a cool exploration of an individual person you would normally dismiss. And it's a really amazing exploration in mythology. And it's short, it's good, but it's really good. That was Circe by Madeline Miller. In 4th place, we have an amazing heist, crime, but also a bit of fantasy, but not in the way you think. It's 6 of the Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is interesting. It's a spin-off from a series called Shadow and Bone, which has a TV show, which also involves this sort of, but I read this before the other one, and I think it's so cool. So it takes place in a world where there is magic and there are powers and these people called the Grisha, but it's on this other continent where people who don't have magic, and that's super cool. It's people who don't have magic in a world of magic and how they navigate that and do different cool things with crime and the gang, and they're not good people. One thing I love in like all mediums and stuff is people who seem real and not like just good, immoral people. And I think that's really cool how they explore it, but also their human side and who all the characters are and how they don't just appear to who they be on the surface. The sequel's really good too, and I just think that's such an amazing question, like, what do the people without magic do in a world dominated by magic users? That's 6 of Crows. Amazing crime book too. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but really interesting stuff ends up happening. In 3rd place, we have one of the top 2 sci-fi novels, and such an amazingly developed world and exploration, almost as good as the 2nd book, but this is Children of Time, or as I like to think of it, ISS Vanguard the book. If you've heard of ISS Vanguard the board game, it's like basically that. It's sort of like humans exploring and trying to discover different planets and colonize, but it's so unique. It switches between 2 perspectives of a spider, Portia, on her planet, and also the humans trying to colonize these other planets. And it's really interesting how it's written. It's so different from anything I've ever read. And it's so interesting, like these themes of like God and religion and who these people are or how humans have changed. And it's such a well-written and hopeful book, like what would happen if we reach the stars and what's going to happen and who these people are and how you actually get to care about Bianca and Portia and Viola, these spiders on this planet. But I'm not going to spoil much more. But it's just so interesting and unique. It's probably one of the most unique books I've read. It's so beautiful and a true explorative novel in humans' discovery, and it is definitely amazing world building and such an interesting question. That was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, at number 2, the best sci-fi book of all time, and it's Dune by Frank Herbert. A really old book and such a weird book by today's standards. Like all the weird names and how it's introduced. There's no really like exposition or anything. It just jumps into it, and it takes a bit to get into. You have to get to like a bit into the book to like understand it and what's going on, and like Thurfir Hawa and Gurney Halleck, like these things you dismiss at first. But I really love the movie too. It's my second favorite movie. Ooh, playing card. But it's really cool. The first book is really good, and you should probably just stop there. If you want more, you can read the second book, but the third was really bad, so I wouldn't continue after that. It's a really interesting story and really interesting characters and such a unique universe. Sci-fi unlike anything else, with the spice that controls the life. There's these quotes at the beginning of each chapter. It's so unique and such like influence from modern day, but also a really unique and different universe. It's like Star Wars, but better. I mean that like sounding super weird and awkward and stuff, but like that's not what I mean. It's like such a good book, and like what Star Wars sort of is, like, but much more interesting with more unique characters. And I love the Bene Gesserit and Paul, but like, I'm sorry, biggest critique with this book, how are you gonna, I saw on Letterboxd, how are you gonna name someone who's going to control the universe and be the Quasiat Haderach or whatever it's called, and name him Paul? Terrible name. So basic. Not bad, but like such a bland name. Could have, when you have Thurfir Hawa and Gurney Halleck, you're not gonna end up with Paul. That's kind of boring. No offense. But Dune is so good and such a really interesting book and unique in what it does. That's Dune by Frank Herbert. And finally, the number 1 objectively best book of all time and the best fantasy book, it's Game of Thrones from A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. This is really underground, not super popular. There's a TV show some people have talked about, but most people don't know about it. I've only read the first book. I just started the second, and it's so amazing. Like, and the book's different from the TV show. It's not all the like inappropriate stuff, but it's just such a amazing and different world. Like it's like medieval, but like very realistic and interesting. But there's also magic, there's also dragons, but all the characters are so well developed, and all the characters it switches between, they're all so interesting. And one of the things I love about it is like there's no like inherently 100% good person, and you never know what's going to happen. Like, it's the one book where you're scared after like almost every page that someone's going to die. But also all the characters are so amazingly fleshed out and interesting, and I really do enjoy it for that. It's not like reading it for like this romantic, I'll say, stuff or violent stuff. It's just really cool how it's developed, and the diplomacy is such a focus. It's no big dragons riding into war against the goblins and stuff. It's the human side of it, which makes it so amazing and so scary, and the diplomacy, how it dances around, is really amazing. That's George R. R. Martin's A Game of Thrones from A Song of Ice and Fire. Top 5 books of all times with some honorable mentions. These are just the ones I found and I was like, ooh, those could make the list. And probably not the ones directly outside of my top 5, but that's it. Please subscribe. If you do, I will smile. And if you wanted more of this content or not more, you can just leave a comment and I'll pay attention to that. Thank you for watching. This was Orpheus Games.